Alright, what's up guys? So today I'm going to be showing you guys two array methods that you could use to easily find items inside of an array that have nested objects. So for example, if we look at this array over here, we have an array of objects. Each object has an ID property, a name property, and an age. And let's look at what we're trying to do. So we have an array of objects for eligible users, and we're trying to find out if our logged in user is inside the array. And we're gonna match it based on the ID. So let's say all we have is our user ID. How can we find if they're inside an array, inside like this array, for example? So let's move this up to the top actually. So I'm gonna do it like this. So we have the ID of our user. Our user is right here, LeBron James. The age is not accurate, but it is what it is, right? So what we're going to do is use, I'm going to show you two array methods. So the first array method is we're going to do array.find. And the second one is going to be array.findIndex. And they essentially do the same thing, but at the end of the day, it's your choice as to what you really are trying to do. So what we can do is do eligible users dot find. Every item inside this array we could name it whatever we want, but we have access to its elements, so we could do element, for example, here. But to be more specific, we can just say user. And for every user, we're going to do user dot. So we're going to try to find the user ID based on our logged in user ID right here. So we're going to say user dot, and we could literally use anything we want over here. So we could do user dot ID, user dot name, or user dot age to find like a match. But we're trying to find ID, so we're going to do user ID triple equals our logged in user ID. We're just going to copy this and put it over here. And what this returns is the object itself. So what we're going to do is do const is, not is, but we're going to do found user equals that. So this either returns us an array, an object, or returns us undefined if it can't find anything. So what we're going to do is do console log found user. Let's see what it returns or what it prints out for us. So my internet's a little bit slow, but here you go. Let me expand this. What's up? And this is what we get in our console log statement. So we get the object. So we could access found user dot name, and it'll print out LeBron James. And we have pretty much access to all of its object properties. So what happens if we put in one that we know isn't there? So let's say our logged in user ID is 10. What would happen? So it'll print undefined because it won't be able to find a user, so it returns undefined. So what I typically like to do is do like an if-else statement like this. So if found user, if there is a found user, so you could just do it like this. If there is something there, if it's not undefined, if found user is not undefined, we could do console.log, and let's do backticks. So we could do found user dot name is an eligible user. Else, let's say else console.log, and let's do the same thing actually. Let's just copy this, Boom. We can't use the dot name, so we'll just say um, logged in user is not an eligible user. So right now our ID is 10 and we only have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is what it should return. Logged in user is not an eligible user. Cool. Simple. Now we could do it another way. And this other way is by using array.findIndex. So we're not necessarily really looking for, if we don't really want to access like properties like this, or if we just want to check if our user is in there, is in the inside the array, we could do the same thing. So let's copy this and just change it up a little bit. So we're going to do const found user equals eligible users dot find index, and we again have access to the elements, and we could call it properties. So we'll do user again, user.userid equals logged in user. So let's do it like that. So boom. So what this returns now is the index itself. So from 0 to whatever number. And since we have 4 items here, it'll be from 0 to 3. That's like the numbers we would expect. So for example, our logged in user ID is number 3. It should return 0, 1, 2, right? So let's console.log found user. And what we should expect is 2. Cool. And this is really a way, if you're not trying to access the user information, because you're just trying to check if it's there. So what we could do is, if found user is not less than 0. So let's say if found user is less than 0, we can console.log logged in. We'll just copy this. Logged in user is not an eligible user. Else, we could say logged in user is an eligible user. So what do we have? This is it. Logged in user is an eligible user, because it's this is false, because what we return, if you could see again, I'll show you one more time. What we returned is 2. If it's, since 2 is obviously not less than 0, we're going to return this part. But again, what if it's not there? What is it going to return? Why do I put if it's a positive number, essentially? Because if it doesn't find anything, it'll be -1. So there you go. Another trick, or another way you could also do to replicate the same thing here, to have access to the name. You can still have access to the name, but it's a little bit slower. So what you could do is right over here, we'll do the array name, so eligible users, and then we're going to do the index of whatever found user is. And let's bring it back to 3, or let's bring it back to what our logged in user was. So scroll back down, boom, right? So we should be getting access to name now. And LeBron James is, is an eligible user. Cool. Pretty simple, pretty nice, pretty easy. So yeah, essentially both things do the same thing. You can verify if an item or like a variable is inside an array of objects, and it's nested inside an object here. You're going to iterate through. It's a lot faster than doing a for loop and then trying to parse through each index and then trying to match its name. This is so much easier. You could reduce the amount of lines of code. Even make this shorter. You could remove this. for example, and do a return here. So this is a lot faster, I would say. Uh, if illegal return statement, because let's figure out why. Return. Interesting. But why? Found user. Oops. I guess then what would you do is if found user, we could do something like that. Check this and then pop like that. Else. Yeah, I mean, literally, we reduced it to 2 lines of code now. And it's pretty understandable. So found user, let's console log it, and his name, or their name, and then else console log they're not an eligible user. And let's switch this back to logged in user ID, and it should return LeBron James is an eligible user. Cool, pretty easy. But yeah, I hope you guys learned something new. So yeah, I hope you guys learned something new today. Yeah, try it out. Let me know if there's other methods for arrays and iterating through them to make it easier to find if or to check if there's an item that you're looking for. Yeah, this is what I found. Cool. Thank you guys.